What's going on, everybody? It is Adrian B, Little Miss Jersey from We Are Jersey, back at it again, this time with a beautiful individual, you guys, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Christina Khalil, and I'm a candidate for United States Senate for the 2024 election.
Wow. Like, I just heard the sirens. I heard everything, all the noise that is coming with this opportunity. So tell us, Miss Khalil, why you are running for Senate and what this means to you.
Why I'm running for Senate, and I get asked that question a lot, and the answers, it's very broad. I grew up in foster care, and I'm a first generation, and the war on drugs broke up my family, and because of that, I wound up bouncing from home to home, and there was short briefs in time where I was a homeless teenager in shelters, and and the trials and tribulations that I faced were so challenging that no one thought that I would even graduate high school. And I had like DCPMP and Bergen's Promise and all these wonderful organizations pushing me. I remember when I graduated high school, and I didn't think I would even graduate. I just remember all these adults just started crying, and they were just like, we had no idea whether you were going to make it or not. And then when I said I was going to college, like the tears were just uncontrollable, and I thought what I witnessed and what I went through was quote unquote normal. I didn't understand until I was much older that nobody should be going through this. And and then when I went to college, I also was exposed to like people that had money, people that were privileged. And when I remember I made some friends, and I actually lost the friends because they all wanted to go on a cruise and they couldn't understand, no, I have to work these two jobs, and I have to pay for my books, and I have to pay these bills, and I can't go with you on the cruise because I financially can't afford that. And they didn't understand the concept of what I was going through either. So they were just like, we don't want to hang out with you anymore. And you're like 20 years old and in college, you're like, wow, I just lost my friend group because of that. And I was like, I always thought there was something wrong with me. But when I got my degree and I started exploring the world, it turns out people like me are the majority, and people like them are the minority.
Yeah.
And I started getting involved in social work, and I went back for my master's degree, and it was just horrendous, where it was, you're in this to help people, you're not in for the money, and then you're going in and you're trying to help people, but then you see all these poorly written policies. Insurance companies should not have the biggest say in like whether a person's deserving to live or deserving to have the treatment, and our leaders just flat out, they only have their self-interest at heart, not the interest of the voters. And I made a promise to myself when I graduated. I said to myself, if I ever had the opportunity to run for office and actually make a change on a global scale, I will take that opportunity in a heartbeat, because it's important for me to make sure that people actually go home to their families. And when I worked in the addiction field, and I worked for the hospital for COVID, and the amount of times it was just, oh, this person's not sick enough, or this person's not doesn't meet the criteria, or we just don't want this person, and they would make it very clear they just didn't want the person. And it's just like, okay, maybe our beds are full, or maybe this, but where can we refer them? No, just have them walk out the door. Well, I can't just let these people walk out the door. And then I would get yelled at, and like, you can't be doing the research. Why are you calling? Why is this person still here? It's like, they're human beings at the end of the day. So they've been denied this program, but let me try and help them get somewhere else, because they're here and they want help, and there's only a small window. And if I send them back out there, the chances of them surviving is slim. And we didn't know what COVID was, but I knew what overdose was, and I was confident. It's like, how can you guarantee that this person's not going to die tonight?
Yeah.
And all they were worried about was money, 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 money. And I'm like, if I'm in it for helping, I'm not in it for the money. And if I'm not helping, I need to leave. But it didn't matter which level of care I went to. It was the same thing over and over and over again. And it was just so, and then just seeing how people bullied people that were, I don't know, I'll make it black and brown and people that struggle with poverty. Those empowered, bullied black and brown and people that struggle with poverty. And I remember I had this very sweet, very nice girl, and I still think about her from time to time and hoping that she's okay. And she came in and she was on probation, but she was sick for 2 days and she missed group. I was like, okay, like, I don't think it's a big deal. I've never had anyone like say it was a big deal. And people, like, everyone's a human being. Like, if you're not feeling well, you need to take off. Like, I don't want you around me if you're sick, because then I get sick very easily.
Right.
Like, don't come near me. So, but she communicated, which was great. She brought doctor's notes, which was even better, and I don't even ask for that. But the judge was very, very clear. And he said, we don't have your kind come up here. And when she told me that, I was just like, you know, people, they're not usually blunt with the racism. I believe you 100%. And I'm just like, I'm scared that you have to go back to this guy. And she was at the court, and this was 6 hours away, and her lawyer called me, and she called me, and she was crying the tears, and she was so scared. He wants to put me in jail for 90 days because I missed 2 days of group. I was like, put your lawyer on. And then the lawyer's like, my hands are tied. I don't know what to do. I was like, stall. Just stall. I'm going to give me 30 minutes. I'm going to put something together. Read it as for me. And, you know, if there's a problem, if we're in contempt, then I'll, like, turn myself in, whatever. Like, I'll make sure I have to at least do whatever I have to do. I'm going to put it on a whim. Whatever happens, because I was terrified. This girl, 19 years old, did not deserve to. She's never been in jail. She never deserved to go to jail for 90 days just for missing 2 days of group. And there was literally no other reason. And I put something together, and the lawyer read on my behalf. The judge said, fine, she's transferring back to New Jersey. He never wanted to hear me again. I was like, I'm fine with that. But it should never have to get that far.
Right.
And she was never a danger to the public. It was just marijuana, which originally put her on probation. And then she missed 2 days of group. And you know what happened when she came back? We got her. She was doing so good. She actually got enrolled into college.
Cool.
And I helped her with her application. I'm just like, but she needed the guidance. And her growing up, she grew up around the Hudson County area. And her growing up, she didn't have a lot of support, and she struggled with a lot, and she was faced with a lot of trials and tribulations herself. And it's just like, you need people to provide guidance. You don't need to punish human beings for something that, like, she didn't commit a murder. She's not a violent person. And you don't need to go after someone based on the color of their skin. And that just drove me wild. But I was just so happy with how her story ended. And I hope she graduated.
And touching on your story a bit, I think you have one of the most empathetic hearts I've ever met.
Thank you.
And hearing your story for the first time definitely brought tears to my eyes. Oh. I wasn't able to show it at the time because of the environment. I was working, but I often think, or just when I speak or think of you, I think of how powerful your story is and what makes you able to relate to so many people, right? So growing up and reflecting on, like, being a foster child and, like, your process of getting where you are today, can you just reflect on that with us a bit so people would know how you're helping people and why you're so able to empathize with people?
Flat out, nobody cared. No one cared. And if one of my foster peers vanished, I've even witnessed it, no one looks for us. And there are so many people where I'm just like, I wonder where they are today that I've met in my journey. And there are some people we have found, I've reconnected with, and and thank God we remember each other's names, but we would use, like, when social media became a big thing, that's how we reconnected. Like, are you okay? Is everything all right? And one of the people, like, I reconnected with, beautiful human being, has 3 kids, and we looked out for each other growing up. And to the point where it's like years can go by, but we know we have each other's backs and we've created that family and that bond. And so many years went by and she reached out to me. I didn't have money, but I had food in my fridge. She was like, hey, can you help me out? Like, I don't have money for food. I was like, I don't have money, but I'm going to grab what's in my fridge and I'm going to bring it down to you right now.
Okay.
And I packed up and this was after years. It's like, and she's a very strong woman herself. She doesn't like to ask for help, but that's the type of connection you have when you grow up in foster care or you're homeless. It's like we have to rely on each other. And I had one, like I always say it's like Bergen's promise. I had one person there that always had that hope in me, and it got to the point where everything that I was facing at 16, actually, let me go back. When I was 16, it got so bad, I didn't even have to go to court. The court emancipated me by themselves. Yeah, I was at school and they looked at how bad the what I've gone through was and the abuse and just how I kept bouncing home from home. They're like, we're emancipating her. And I wound up staying with a set of foster parents, and I was just like, oh, I finally had a family. And then they made it clear to me, they were like, you are not part of our family. When we have our family over, we need you out of the house. And I was just like, okay, fine, but I had a place to sleep. And I was just like, I have to do what I have to do. And the sadness and the anger and being separated from my siblings because they didn't want. I remember my brother came over one time, and he came over to surprise me. They didn't even tell me they threw him out and sent him away. My brother had to tell me a week later. It was like, I didn't know if you'd be in trouble or not, and I was just like, what do you mean I'd be in trouble? And he told me that he came over and got sent away. I was like, this is so messed up. And I was working too, but I could never afford an apartment. I'm just like, why? If I'm doing all these things, they don't want me here. I'm working. I'm trying to go to school. I'm doing a whole bunch of things. And if I'm technically a legal adult being emancipated, I want to be able to afford my own apartment.
Right.
But then nobody wanted to put their trust in me, even though I was forced to grow up. They still looked at me like a kid. I'm like, well, I'm not your typical 17-year-old. Like, I can handle responsibility. They're like, well, we'll start you out part-time and see how this goes. And I wound up, when I went to college, I lived in the dorms, which is great. So it helped me with that situation. But it was just, and then even in college, it was hard to focus because every I think it was 4 or 5 months, I can't remember time frames each semester, I had to move and wonder, okay, where am I going to be this time? So it's like, I would move in and be like, okay, I'm safe. And halfway through the semester, I would lose focus on
true.
lose focus on school and be like, okay, where am I going? And
Right.
when I look at my old transcript, I could see the beginning of my grades. I was like, everything's good. And then you could see, when some went really down. And when I went back for my master's, I was just more, okay, all my grades were up, but there's a reason for that. Because after college, I wound up bouncing around, and I was in one unhealthy relationship after another. And I'm just like, there's got to be something better. I just want to be on my own, and I'm working 2 jobs, and the rent is still so high because at that time we were getting paid $10 an hour or $11 an hour, and that was really good for minimum wage. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. How I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm not out here committing crimes. And there were so many times where I felt like the policies and the laws written, they were never meant to help people like me or people in my situation. And I'm just like, well, and I had the thoughts, I'm like, well, if I just sold, I can make that. I'm just like, I'm starting to think like this. And I'm just like, if I did this, I can make money. If I did that, I can make extra money. I'm like, but I don't want to do that because I'm already exhausted. And that's where it was. I was exhausted already working 2 jobs. I'm like, doing something extra. I just want to be able to work 1 job, focus on my life, and get to where I need to be. And then I wound up getting a great job, and I spoke with my landlord, and a lot of people said no. And I always encourage people, if you really have a strict price range, do not lose hope. And I can't stress that enough. Please talk to landlords, and I've told you this before. talk to landlords, you're going to find one person that says yes within your budget that will not raise your rent, because a lot of landlords care about having good tenants, and instead of just having that high turnover rate, you don't know what you're getting.
Right.
And I found that landlord, and because of him, like, I had my 1 bedroom apartment. It was such a sweet, beautiful deal, and he hasn't raised the rent. It's been the same price for 7 years, and he's just like, take care of yourself. Like, that's all I want for you. Like, and this man didn't know me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, and then I'm going into it, is he gonna be like, ask me inappropriate things, ask me for a favor, but he didn't do any of that. And I'm just so grateful for him, because when I had my very first home at like 24, 25, it was that all I knew was survival.
Mm-hmm.
And that anxiety that comes with that type of survival, you think that that's normal. But when I had my home and I finally had the ability to have that anxiety and stress, I can't even tell you, it was like a mountain came off of me. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I have all this time. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to stay. I don't have to fear. That fear was gone. It's like, I want to go back to school for my master's degree, and I want to help people, and I want to get more people on this side.
Mm-hmm.
And then going through my master's and experiencing COVID, it turned into a lot bigger than what I thought it would be. For more people to get on my side, it starts from the top.
Mm-hmm.
I need my opponent's position. I need to be in charge of the budget. I need to be in charge of rewriting policies and laws.
Mm-hmm.
So I started studying the policies, and thank God in my master's program, we actually had to learn how to write policies and learn how to manage grants. And then I wound up doing volunteer experience with that and learning okay, I want to get good at this. I want to know what I'm talking about. I want to know where the money's going. I want to be able to audit myself before I get audited.
Right.
And I got really good at that. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this on a micro level. I want to do this now on a macro level.
Right.
And I want to be able to help hundreds and thousands of people at the same time instead of one person.
Okay.
Because their mental health is not equal. When it comes to recovery, there's so many barriers, and it does not even matter, honestly, if you have paid insurance, because a lot of people that are on like state insurance are like, oh, if I had commercial insurance, there's that myth. And I thought about it for a long time until I started working. I believe that myth until I started working with commercial insurance. The barriers in place, even for people that pay $40,000 a year for their insurance, is just ridiculous. It's the same barriers for people that have Medicaid. It is so hard to get treatment.
Yeah. It's definitely a struggle, adulting. Like,
Yes.
Getting into adulthood, or just learning how to be mature as a law-abiding citizen, is one of the most hardest things to do. I know for myself, I just entered adulthood, and figuring it out, it's like, what are all these loopholes, turns? What does this small text mean? What are the red flags that I'm not necessarily seeing right away? And I know for myself, I'm very fortunate for the situation, the position that I'm in. But for a lot of my peers that I'm around, I'm witnessing, different changes that just policyholders can make, if they just really cared about the community more. And what you would see a lot in New Jersey leadership are like people who take these positions and take on the initiative, but aren't from the same places that are impacted the most by the laws that are in place. So with that being said, through your campaign, what are the top 3 focal points that you're looking to improve the most?
Community, healthcare, and the housing crisis.
And you personally have like individual stories from each of those sectors.
Yes.
Seeing people in the lack of care in the healthcare field, seeing people not be placed in housing authorities, but really, really needing it in dire situations. And the list goes on, right? So what would make your campaign different from what's in place right now?
My campaign's different because I already reviewed New Jersey's budget for the last 3 years, and I also reviewed the federal budget, and I am very aware how much of our money is being wasted, how many sort of called duplicate programs there are, and how instead of us rewriting the programs and redirecting the money into the areas that where it would actually help people and uplift them, they just want to print more money, and they're like, we'll do this program, we'll print more money. Oh, well, that's not going to work. I come with an evidence-based belief, like the research states that this is going to work. This is where we need to redirect our focus and energy, because if we're doing the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity, and nothing's changing.
Right.
Then we need to change it up. We need to, where does the research say? How does it help? And then you have to also listen to the people. And a lot of my clients and patients, they would say, oh, if I had this, this, and this, and it's an array of things. I'm like, well, that's not unrealistic to actually happen if we redirected the funds into this.
Yep.
It's one of the things is like, when it comes to people who are working that need to go get treatment, we really need to redirect the funds where we can make sure that rent and your mortgage and all your bills are at least covered while you can focus on recovery. Otherwise, you're not able to focus on recovery.
Right.
You're going to be out there working, and your addiction is just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. So speaking about, the path that you are pursuing right now, what are some of the biggest setbacks that you see thus far? Like duplicate policies or duplicate investments into programs. Why is that in New Jersey? Like, why do they have so many duplicates? Why is the focus seeming so limited to our audience right now?
So, this is across the entire country. And the problem is, it's all about, they are different from us, those elected, and they want to just protect themselves. And no one, when people get elected into office, nobody likes to call each other out.
Okay.
No one wants to say, I'm going to, fine, I will work an extra week, or I will stay up late, or after these hours, I'll start working on this grant or this policy, or redeveloping these rules and redirecting the money. Nobody wants to take that extra initiative to work for the people, so they just leave everything as it is and try to pass the buck. And then when you reach out and you're just like, hey, I want to have a conversation, or I'm interested in discussing these issues, and I think this is where the money would go. It's no one, they're just like, okay, well, let me forward this email. There's no follow-up. Oh, let me get back to you. There's no follow-up, because that actually involves working, and a lot of people just don't want to work. And I come from a background where my clients will tell you, like, I will find the solution. I don't care how hard it is. And if I've exhausted all resources, I will sit with you and I will apologize. I will say, I did it all, but I can't find the solutions, because now it goes to the top.
Yeah.
Now it's about the poor policies and laws that are put into place. And now I feel helpless.
Right.
And it becomes, instead of me feeling the self-defeating behavior, I'm just like, let me get into the position and actually make these changes.
So what are the many hats that you wear that educated you on what you're about to tackle now? Because you do so many things, and you wouldn't even tell that you do so many things. So
okay. So growing up, experiencing homelessness as a teenager and young adult, growing up in foster care, being a first generation, being in school and struggling financially, working in the medical field, working in the mental health field, the addiction field, the prison population, and also even struggling with people that are like on the verge of suicide. One of my very first clients, and just working with fear in general. One of my very first clients, I remember we were walking out and I was closing up shop, and he turned to me, and it was raining, and he stayed behind. I'm like, oh, what's going on, and what's happening, because you're still here.
Right.
And he just started bawling, and he was like, I want to kill myself. And I'm just like, okay, I can't have you do that, because you have a family to go to, and how can I help you? And him just saying, and this is where I got another perspective, because I grew up as a woman, he grew up as a man, and then growing up in this field, the amount of men that are sexually abused, and there's zero resources. For me, when issues like that came up, I had people to talk to, I had the support, I had comfort, and I would easily get help. But the amount of men are like, we could not talk about that. And I'm working with male victims, and I've been in this field for so many years. it's just maybe like 5% that aren't victims that I've worked with. Everyone else, I'm just like, oh my God, that happened to you? That's horrible. I'm like, and it's just, okay, we need to really protect the youth. We really need to protect the kids. We need to make mental health a lot easier for them to access, but we also need to give them resources too. And people are just like, oh, they're kids, they don't know any better. Yeah, they do know better. They're very smart. They're very self-aware. They know what's going on. They just need safe people to go to. And a lot of times, like, some of the parents, they don't believe in that stuff. It's like, it's okay that you don't believe in it, but your kid believes in it. Let them go to therapy.
Yeah.
Let's have these, and just getting involved in the family dynamic of things and talking to the parents and meeting them where they're at too, and being open-minded. And that's the most important thing, no matter what field I worked in. Even, and just whether I was in a leadership role or a volunteer role or a support role, whatever role, always having an open mind, because no matter how much information I have, I will never know it all.
Yeah.
I want to keep learning. I want to keep helping. I want to keep being better every single day. And the only way for me to do that is listening. And I can never, and if someone's saying, well, these are my experiences, these are my challenges, okay, well, how can I help you?
Yeah.
These are my resources. What kind of resources are you looking for? How can I make these resources a reality? And if these resources don't exist, okay, how can I start and get to these resources? How can we make these resources happen?
Right.
And just going out and even speaking to different community leaders and getting involved in that way, and that's a challenge too. But, and some of them are like, okay, I'm open to doing this, but it's like they're scared because everyone works like 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, they do.
And this is where I believe, like, we really need one full-time job to support everything, because then people have more time. We have more community leaders out actually in the community. We can have more supportive groups. We can have more volunteer EMTs, more volunteer firefighters. We could really have the community taking a lead in healing each other and healing ourselves.
Definitely. Sounds like a utopia as
Yeah.
you're describing it. I'm like, what a perfect world. So, I mean, as we're on the path to creating that for, many people's lives, you and I have spoke personally a lot. So I know a lot about you, you guys. So we're kind of cheating you and the audience itself. But I want to give you a chance to directly communicate to the audience, because we have our interpersonal time and we've spoke a lot. So if you could share a message directly with the audience and give them advice, right, behind your campaign, behind who you are, within the next 2 minutes, can you just give the audience of just who you are, the resources you're looking to provide, and where they can find the closest thing to what it is you're about to provide in the meanwhile?
Oh gosh, well,
Yeah.
where they can find it, they would have to reach out.
Yeah, to you, of course,
It depends on what they're looking for, but I do encourage everybody to somehow find a way to support the campaign, whether it's through endorsing, donation. And if you don't have money, that's okay. You can share. You can even email and ask questions. We give human responses. It's not an automatic response like you get from other offices. This is a community network. I would like to see New Jersey band together so we can jump to the front as a unit, because it takes a team for us to make these type of changes. We have to come together to get the resources that we do need, to get the help that we deserve. And I can't do this without New Jersey. I can't do this without the citizens.
So basically what we're saying here today is, with all the resources that Ms. Khalil is bringing to the state and planning for, the best of your livelihoods at home, for single parents, for those fighting through the healthcare system, private prison systems, and so much more, you guys. Stay tuned on her campaign and the journey. Make sure to stay in tune with each step-by-step process, because it is a long process that you have to go through. And thank you for going through that for us to represent us.
It's not a problem. Because if not me, who? And why can't I?
Yeah.
And why can't we make the changes that we're all fighting for?
Yeah. So if you don't know how to make it happen, Miss Christina Khalil is the one who is going to make it happen for us. And anything that you would need along the way, you're more than welcome to reach out to her office, like she stated before. And just hang in there, you guys, because she is living proof that you can do what you set your mind to. You can make it out of that situation. Sometimes we just have to live through it and get stronger from it.
And the biggest message I want to send is, I don't want people to have to experience the pain and trials and tribulations. I'm fighting to make it easier to transition, to come on this side of the world. You don't have to do it alone.
Definitely. We're focusing on being proactive instead of reactive.
Yes.
So if you definitely want to be proactive and follow up with her campaign and her journey, feel free to follow along.
Yeah, and it's Christina Khalil for NewJersey.com.
Period, y'all. So stay tuned for more. We are going to debrief and talk about so many important things that are coming to light that we, want to tackle and promote to you guys. And I hope that you will all enjoyed this interview today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm so blessed.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to say? Any final words?
No, I just thank you guys for listening, and I'm just thankful to have this opportunity.
Oh. Well, we're going to debrief you guys. It is Adrienne B. Little Miss Jersey back at it again with the one and only We Are Jersey Entertainment and Magazine. Stay tuned for more with Christina Khalil. See you guys later.
We are Jersey. 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 We are Jersey.